Christmas season is regarded as the most joyful time of the year. It's a festival where evergreen trees are lavishly decorated, feasts are prepared, all topped with a tradition of sharing thoughtful gifts with the people we care about the most, while children await the quiet arrival of an all-knowing, all-hearing, ageless entity that can travel many times faster than any human can comprehend, that would send shockwaves and destroy buildings in its wake to deliver presents. How far do a lot of these beliefs and traditions go? Where do they originate? Welcome back to History's 11. Bundle up and follow me through the centuries and continents to see the history of the customs, irreligious, pagan, and Christian alike, that make up the holidays we now call Christmas. The festival that would eventually evolve into Christmas started from the Roman pagan festival known as Saturnalia. It's a 7-day-long feast from December 17th to the 23rd, meant to honor Saturn, the Roman god of agriculture and sowing. It has a lot in common with what we already know about Christmas in its current form. It was the most popular feast in ancient Rome, meant for Roman citizens to indulge in merrymaking that in many other times of the year would have been inappropriate in Roman society, like gambling, pranking, and public drinking. Roman poet Gaius Valerius Catullus described it as, quote, the best of times in his Carmina 14. The most notable custom you may find similar is the act of gift-giving, though a characteristic that's not shared with today is a lot of the gifts people would give are prank gifts for sharing laughter. Going back to Gaius Valerius Catullus' Carmina 14, he wrote that his friend, a fellow Roman poet and satirist, Calvus, gave him a gift actually in character given his profession, a joke book full of bad poetry. Saturnalia was regarded by the Romans to be a day of social relaxation and merriment. Some citizens were apprehensive about the scene of the holiday. Seneca the Younger was a Roman Stoic philosopher whose teachings encouraged people to take control of their own lives by enjoying life with self-restraint, without letting pointless pleasures guide our choices, and achieving goals through pure acceptance and determination without complaining. He wrote to his friend Lucilius that while he recognizes that letting loose and having fun isn't itself bad, seeking pleasures and luxuries at every turn and letting them change us is the enemy. If I knew you well, you would stand as an intermediary. You would not want us to be exactly like the crowd with the party hats, but neither would you want us to be completely different. And yet, it be that during these days, one ought more than ever to take charge of one's own mind, ordering it to abstain from pleasures just when everyone else is indulging in them. For if it does not proceed, and it is not enticed into those luxuries which will lead into dissipation, it is a very sure proof of its own strength. The latter is by far the bolder course, to remain cold sober when everyone else is drunk and vomiting. Or is more moderate, not to hold oneself apart or draw attention to oneself, while still not mingling in every respect to do as others do, but not in the same manner. For one may celebrate the holiday without dissipation. Germanic pagans, particularly the Norse, celebrate a wintertime festival called Yuletide. It's a festival that marks the longest night, starting on the winter solstice on December 21st and lasting until the start of the new solar year on January 1st, when they believe the days would gradually start to get longer again. A pagan tradition that eventually made its way into Christian practices during Christmas is taking an evergreen tree to decorate it. The northern pagans had patron trees like Yggdrasil and Thor's oak, represented by the trees they decorate. For ancient Germanic tribes, it's believed that people sometimes used to, quote, decorate the trees by sacrificing male animals and slaves by suspending them to the tree's branches. Over time, of course, these decorations for the trees to celebrate the solstice would become more tasteful. Considering how Christmas has pagan origins, putting a largely Christian spin on old traditions is nothing new, as decorating the tree wouldn't be accepted by Christians until the 1840s across the world. but it was the Germans that made it popular starting in the 1500s. But why did Germanic pagans pick an evergreen to decorate during the cold season? Well, it's because they believed the evergreen to be favored by the gods for staying alive during the inhospitable winter months, and to remind them that the green to the trees will always come back when spring comes around. There are numerous sweets associated with the holidays. A popular Spanish treat is known as turrón, the nougat delicacy consisting of honey, sugar, and egg whites, along with a variety of nuts, sometimes shaped into a cake. The story of its origin extends to as far back as the Middle Ages, when Spain and Portugal were known as Al-Andalus, a region controlled by independent Islamic emirates under a wider caliphate. This cultural bridge brought access to things in the Muslim world, like language with loanwords from Arabic into modern Spanish, architectural influences like mudakhar, and the culinary arts. In the case for the treat of turrón, food historians agree that it originated in the Arabian Peninsula, and in the 11th century, the first reference to a treat called turrón was in an Arab physician Ibn al-Rafid's treatise known as De Simplicibus Medicinis Latitibus around the 11th century, where it talks about how to make the treat. Parts of the treat, specifically the almonds and other nuts, have already been staples of Spanish delicacies since Roman times, so not all of it came from the Moors alone. But undoubtedly, all these factors came together and evolved over the centuries to form the sweet treat the Spanish consume every Christmas. It's a surprise to no one that Santa Claus is the symbol of Christmas. He's an old, jolly bearded man who lives in the North Pole who goes around from house to house delivering gifts to good children all over the world. He goes by many aliases like Father Christmas, Kris Kringle, but the most popular one is Saint Nicholas. The name Santa Claus derives from a shortened version of Saint Nicholas's Dutch name. Sint Nicolaas becomes shortened to Sinterklaas. Sinterklaas, Santa Claus, see the connection? The person who's immortalized as Santa Claus was the real St. Nicholas of Myra. Despite having a name popular with Dutch roots and associated with the winter season and colder climates, St. Nicholas was actually born in Myra, a city in western Turkey around the late 3rd century during the reign of Roman Emperor Constantine I, who was the founder of the city of Constantinople, known today as Istanbul, and who also happened to be the Roman emperor who made Christianity the official religion of the empire. Not much outside of biased, posthumous Christian records is known about St. Nicholas himself, as much of what we know about him comes from legends told about his kindness and generosity, especially towards children, merchants, and the poor in Myra, where he served as its bishop. There was a cult dedicated to him that started around the 4th century, where he apparently died on the 6th of December of an unknown year. Some think he died in 343 CE, the same year the cult of St. Nicholas officially formed. He was buried in a church outside of the city since Roman law at the time of his death prohibited burial within city walls before his bones were taken to and venerated in Italy in 1087 and have remained there ever since. We all know the song 12 Days of Christmas. Even though Christmas is solely on the 25th of December all around the world, where does the idea for the 12 days come from? The song references how long people in medieval England celebrated Christmas. Christmas traditionally started from December 25th and lasted until January 6th, the day the Orthodox calendar celebrates it. Leading up to the celebration of Christmas was a time for fasting and preparing for the 12-day-long feast for all social groups. What exactly did people do during these 12 days? Well, it depended on the celebrator's social standings, but everyone would still celebrate it in the same way in some capacity. People would play games, put on plays, and live music. In a letter translated from medieval English by Dr. Ruth Salter, a woman named Marjorie Paston wrote to her husband that dates to the Christmas Eve of 1484, wrote that Lady Morley cancelled a lot of the festivities originally planned because she was in mourning of her husband, Lord Morley. to my right worshipful husband, John Paston. Sent your eldest son to my Lady Morley to have knowledge of what sports were in her house in Christmas after the decease of my lord, her husband, and she said that there were no disguisings, nor harping, not looting, nor singing, nor any loud sports, playing at the tables, and chess and cards. Such sports gave her folk leave to play, and none other. By the later Middle Ages to Tudor England, a tradition would be the presentation of a whole roasted boar's head. Presentation of the boar's head was pure spectacle. Costumed dancers would lead the procession to begin the feast. When was Christmas officially declared to be celebrated on December 25th? It was Emperor Constantine who initiated the holiday in the 4th century CE to replace Saturnalia, which was celebrated around the same time of year. He initiated the Christian filter to out old pagan traditions in an effort to Christianize the pagans, help transition the empire into the new official faith. One of the most iconic things about Santa Claus today is how he gets around the world on a magical sleigh pulled by 8 flying reindeer named Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Comet, Cupid, Vixen, Donder, Blitzen. But where did all these names come from? Compared to other things about Santa Claus that have ancient to medieval origins, this one is rather recent, originating in an 1823 poem allegedly written by either Clement Clarke Moore or Henry Livingston Jr., titled A Visit from St. Nicholas, or more commonly known as 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. We may associate Santa Claus to be wearing all red and white, but this too is a recent addition to the look of Father Christmas. In the 1870s, Santa Claus's image was depicted in many kinds of ways, but had precursors to what would evolve into what we know now. Take these illustrations by anonymous artists to accompany the 1821 poem written by an unknown author, but published by William B. Gilley, Old Santa Claus with Much Delight. One has him riding a sleigh pulled by a single reindeer clad in a familiar red suit, and another where he's wearing green and has a reddish beard instead of a white one. Although these early variations shared a similar base, these weren't yet considered to be the definitive Santa Claus look, and he would also sometimes be depicted in a completely different appearance as a tall, lanky elf dressed in fur. The first time he donned his iconic red suit in its current look was in an illustration by German-American political cartoonist and caricaturist Thomas Nast, where he, like previous incarnations, smoking from a pipe, but this element was later removed. By the 1920s and 30s, the Coca-Cola Company used Santa Claus in the red suit for an advertisement campaign in magazines where they wanted to create a much more warm and wholesome look associated with their brand. This campaign was so successful that Santa Claus and the red suit are practically inseparable today. Unlike the States and other parts of the world, the image of St. Nicholas in the Netherlands maintained a conservative traditional look, where he's seen wearing a bishop's gown, passing through town on a white horse carrying a magical book full of the names of every man, woman, and child to tell them who's deserving of a gift or not. Now for this last fact, I'd like to gift myself with a break from history by sharing a fact of what would it be like if Santa Claus was real. What would him delivering gifts all over the world look like from our perspective on ground? We imagine a child looking out the window, hearing the sleigh bells ring and the pitter-patter of the reindeer's hooves, like in the poem 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. But in reality, a child waiting for Santa to come wouldn't really be able to see nor hear anything by the time he parks a sleigh on their roof, and there would be no gift recipients alive by Christmas morning because their home and all others before it would have been destroyed instantaneously by the shockwaves emitted by the reindeer having to travel at 0.5% the speed of light, which is well above the speed that causes a quick increase of the local air pressure and redistributes it sideways, which could devastate almost anything in close range, including houses and rupturing any and all internal organs. And the sleigh bells would be more of a bad omen instead of a whimsical, wondrous noise you would wake up to in the middle of the night, because having to travel at such a speed would in fact be a deafening explosion that could be heard by anyone within a 15-mile radius. But that's the reality of the job if it means he has to go through every house all across the world to deliver the gifts and getting the f*** out of there while crossing all time zones in one night. Christmas and its pagan predecessors are intended to be the most joyous time of year, where family and friends can come together to celebrate a bountiful feast before the harsh winter fully sets in. people around the world use this final month of the year to give thanks either to the folks they celebrate with or whatever god they worship in the form of merrymaking and giving gifts. If there's a historical fact that I missed or simply got wrong, do let me know so I can address them in the future. But for now, I'd like to thank all of you for watching this episode of History 11, and whether you celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, or Yule, faithful or not, have a happy holidays and even better New Year, and I look forward to seeing you all next year.